Mr. Pennings is present, Mr. Beaver, Mr. Dudley, Ms. Morency, and myself. We're here tonight for a budget presentation, and I don't know exactly what you all want to do. I'm sure we all have lots of questions. So I think what I'd like to start with is the first budget concepts, and tell me what changes you've made in that so that we can know the difference.
Okay, what I'm going to do is turn it over to the individuals that have made changes. I think as we start at the front and begin to page through, on page 2, Amanda did some changes there, so if you want to.
When I was told to gather the information, I was told to gather for all new positions, and the first information that you all received reflected new positions. We have changed that because I thought this was for informational purposes only, but I think you all wanted to know what we had added, therefore what kind of impact it would have on the budget for next year. So the changes that you see in front of you are the actual additional teachers that we hired for the 17-18 school year that weren't reflected in the budget. And we also added educational assistants. Of course, most of those were added due to increased enrollment numbers. And then you'll see another change of new position, new title, and those were the RTI. We put those on there. They were part of the KEYS initiative, but we did want to reflect those in the summary.
Neon green.
I like it.
Yeah.
And you're talking about the teacher and experience report? Okay.
This is for the 3 years. I'm sorry, now I'll get back on the mic. Here you go. Amanda has furnished me the last 2 years with the training and experience grid. And if you look at it, you'll see this is 2015-16, 16-17, 17-18. I just need an explanation as to why we've lost almost 50 teachers in 2017-18 with the grid. Look at, you had in 15-16, 974 certificated, and then in 16-17, 953, and in 17-18. When I got this T&E and looked at the last one, I didn't understand what the difference is, but you've shown me here that there's additional teaching things, so I just don't understand where those positions have gone.
We'll have to look and see. The 17-18, of course, was ran out of Skyward, and I believe
Okay.
the 16-17 would have been half Zortec, half Skyward. 15-16 would have been completely Zortec. To get those reports, we had to run those out of those software systems. I can certainly look
In
back.
budgeting, though, we got to know the right numbers. You know, that's 50
Right, and
positions that at a cost of 60, 70 average, something like that.
I understand that. I'll have to look back and check these and check what we've sent over the past couple of years. And
Well, I thought if you'd see it together here, and you can kind of see where the positions are and also, we just need accurate information.
Okay, we'll check it.
Thank
We'll
you.
check it and see.
Okay, now, moving on.
Madam Chair,
Yes, excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm really bad about
this
that.
schedule you give us doesn't include benefits, right?
No, but I have a copy of what it is. The benefits would add 8,000, a little over 8,000, right, Amanda?
Mm-hmm.
To each employee's salary.
Thank you.
The one I just gave you is how many are in that position. I mean, numbers.
Does
Okay.
that 8,000 include FICA, Medicare,
No,
retirement?
that's another 1,800, I think. I'm not positive about that figure. Do you know?
I can,
8,000 would just be medical, dental, and the life insurance, the group benefits that we offer.
Wait a minute. I had it written down somewhere. I think 1,181, does that sound right?
for,
Social Security, pension, and Medicare?
and you're figuring that on which salary?
Beginning.
Oh,
That part I'm beginning.
okay.
But I honestly, I can't calculate that well, so, because
Okay.
a higher salary would be paying more,
Yes.
you know, so.
Yes, there's, the combination of FICA and Medicare is 7.65%.
Okay,
And the retirement is 10.3736. And then the others are all flat amounts for, life, dental, life, dental, and medical.
All right,
Well,
retirement's
I-
10.46.
okay.
I've been on Social
10.46.
Security for 12 years now. You can't consider the money taken off for Social Security as a benefit. Trust me.
No, it's just a cost.
It's a cost.
just a cost.
I agree. I totally agree. Okay, moving on then, so. Where are we?
Oh, sorry. The other area that made changes to this document was Stan, and he was just gonna point out what he changed to the budget concepts.
Yeah, and our pages, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were always over to my page. The,
Oh, I've got one change. Page 3. Page 3, Battle Creek Middle School, we added in supplies for Project Lead the Way. So that's why the middle school is higher than the elementary school, because those supplies were added in.
and somewhere, and I'm not finding it, Karen, I thought we put in the $2 million, we changed, there it is, at the top of page 13. Capital funds, we had $1 million that had been added, and last time when we came to this meeting, there was a lot of, a lot of discussion about that need to be $2 million, so we increased it from $1 million to $2 million, so I've noted that there. I did find 2 errors in what I'd listed previously, in that, I'm on page 12 now. Page 12. 13 is where it talks about the capital fund. Zone 12, I actually had a position in there that I had removed, and that was for a contracted, but previously in what I'd given you, I had a contracted services administrator. But I'd taken that out of the budget, but I'd forgot to take it out of the budget concepts. So it's no longer there if you're looking at last time's. But last time I had forgotten to put in a transportation trainer, which we included in the budget. That's a new position and that has to do with last year the state passed public chapter number 289, which added a lot of regulations to buses, and that included a lot of additional training for bus drivers. So we've actually added that position. It's about a $34,000 a year position. That's based on the scale of what we already pay. We have one scale that we use in the transportation office for dispatchers and trainers, and so this would be at the beginning part of that scale. Also, we added $15,000 to our training budget. So we would be adding that position to deal with all of the additional training requirements through that chapter. So that's the only 3 things I changed. So actually, those things were already in the budget. It didn't change the numbers. I just corrected my mistake. But I did make the numbers go up by $1 million in the budget by changing that from
Because you
$1
were
million.
told to. That's
Yeah,
absolutely
told
right.
it to increase the capital from $1 million to $2 million.
Another $1 million.
So another $1 million
Big
is
deal.
what was added. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Benny.
Does the trainer have to have a regular bus driver's license?
They do.
or CA?
They'll be, what we do now is we have a third-party agreement with the state where we have we have one lady on our staff who does the testing and the training now. And so anybody who we hire to be a bus driver, she tests them and she trains them and tests them. They do not go to the state office to get their license. We do it all in-house. This would be an additional trainer who would be a licensed bus driver, would also be able, like all of the 4 ladies who work in our dispatch office, they all are licensed bus drivers. They fill in as needed. Some mornings we're down to 1 dispatcher because they're all out filling bus driver needs. So this person would be a trained driver, but also would be the person to take over this training, this additional training that's required by the state.
there aren't any other changes to that document, so we can move on to the budget impact summary, the color-coded one. As a result of tweaking the numbers in the big packet that's all by account number, this summary changed. And so basically, we changed the 2 million that Stan spoke about for capital. And I believe that was the only thing that was changed other than the bottom line, which now reflects a difference between revenues and expenditures of 11,585,000.
Schools, it's gone to 793 from 733.
Battle Creek,
That's from the
that's for
Battle
the
Creek.
materials
Okay,
for
just
Project
check.
Lead the Way, yes, ma'am.
Okay, good check. And then at this time, before we get into this big document, because it affects this bottom line, after all this was printed today, I was double checking our revenues for the maintenance of effort test. And I realized that one of the revenues was recorded as $150 instead of $150,000. So
It's a good problem.
that's a
a
good
good one.
problem. We have an extra 149,000 in revenue. So in our next round of documents, I'll reflect that. So it's a little bit better than 11,585,000, but not a lot.
Okay, maybe this is a teaching moment, but in looking over all these documents, last year we approved a budget of 96 million whatever, right? Okay. And yet now we're saying 101 is the figure we're working on, and down, 99, 156. How did we get to that? Is that from fund balance? How do we, if we approved a budget, how did we then get to that?
The very first page of this document is what you're talking
I guess because I just want to, because we used, last year we worked off of the previous year and then added 2.
Yes.
But somehow we're working off a $99 million figure.
Let me just, you're right, we have a lot of documents here. The 99 figure is the total projected for FY19 for the revenue.
Oh, okay.
So if we take, you're looking at projected expenditures of 110,742. So if I take you to the big document and we go into, and we should have had these numbers, page numbers. Let's see, I can't even give you a page number, but it looks like this, and it's got FY18 budget. Yeah, it's got FY18 budget, they all look the same, and FY19 budget, and you can see there, we're starting in FY18 with 101,443 in expenditures, and we're up to 110 million.
How'd we
And
get
so-
to 101? That's what I want to know.
So how do we get to 101?
When we budgeted 96, and our
All of-
revenues are 99. I mean,
Okay.
I need.
Okay, let's just talk about expenditures first.
Okay.
Okay? If you go to that page, your revised FY18 budget, you're starting at 101 with expenditures. And so part of the confusion, I think, for you is, although this is going to be trying to explain how to, the fund balance, because you have about 4.5 million in fund balance. I actually have another report that I can pull that might help explain that.
And what I think you're asking is how do we go from a projected budget of 96? So you took $1.9 million out of the keys for parallel capital maintenance. You took money out of the keys to do Project Lead the Way, diploma, the RTI positions at over $800,000. So all of those things get added into the FY18 budget.
Is there any other added into? Huh? Well,
For
that's
FY18.
That's FY18. I'm talking about how we reached that beginning number, that's what I'm talking about.
No, everything in FY '18 that grew was money that you took out of fund balance to purchase things for kids and for
Okay.
schools that then added to the bottom line. Because remember, one of our audit findings is that we were charging against a Q account when that money had to come out of fund balance and go into an expenditure line. And what that does is that raises your budget up.
But that's not a revenue we can count on, anything from fund balance, so.
Right.
So we're kind of saying, gee, I think I'm gonna, 101 what I'm working on, but that's not
Yep.
revenue we can count on, so.
And so one of the things that I pointed out at the last budget meeting was, last year we ran, if the county commission had funded us over the last 10 years at where we should have been funded due to revenue growth and allowing us to budget our revenue, because remember, they would only allow us to budget our revenue in a certain amount. What they wouldn't let us budget would roll into fund balance at the end of the year. We then elected over the last 2 years to take that money out and to pull it into our GP and start to purchase things. Our budget last year, without fund balance, would have been around $101 million on a 10-year average. That's where it would have been. So whether you take the fund balance out afterwards, add it in, and then raise it, or they allow us to spend it from where it should, we were about where we should have been.
Okay, all right, thank you. Are there any, I'm sorry, I'm really bad at this. Tommy's gonna hit me. I do have lots of questions. I don't know at what point you want me to discuss anything I want to discuss. Just go for it.
Fire away. Let's do
Um,
it. Unless
Let's
you
talk
wanna
about what, or,
dig in deeper.
no, finish what you need to do.
Okay. I pulled out the report that I just did today for the April financials that will be on the board agenda. And our current, because remember, we keep doing these budget amendments all the time, so we keep changing the playing field with FY '18 of what we're comparing to. So right now, the latest printout out of Skyward is that our budget for FY '18 is $1,207,222. And that does not include the 4.5 million out of fund balance. So, 102 million? Oh, I'm sorry, 102,722,865 is the revised budget at this point. And then we've also used 4.5 million of fund balance. So if you add those two together, you're over $1,000,007. So right out of the chute, if we were gonna continue the expenses that were taken out of fund balance, we'd be 4.5 in the hole. So that's 4.5 of the increase. So does that help some? And then the next time we do another round of budget, I'm going to print out the latest FY '18 budget, because when this was pulled, we've had budget amendments since then. So it's just like a moving target, because every month you're doing more and more budget amendments, and things are getting moved around. And as we were working through the FY '19 budget and discovered issues with where things were charged or the wrong count numbers or whatever, things got moved around. So as we compare 18 to 19, it may not be very clear using the old 18. So the next round, you'll have the most updated for the year we're in to help compare to next year. This is close, but we've made some changes.
Ms. Kinzer, may I add one thing that just helped clarify something for me, and I don't know if this will help or not, but what Ms. Gagliano has done is in the past, all of the grants and things like that that came in, we didn't include in the budget to start with. Those always go into our expenditure line, but they were added by budget amendment. And so those never showed up in that beginning of the year budget, but as they came in through the year, we upped our budget as those, and so she's budgeting those on the front end. So those are all showing up on the front end this time, because we're budgeting on the revenue side. So that makes some difference as well. And so I think that contributes to a lot of that.
Yes.
So would we
Marissa.
go back in, if you're budgeting on the front end, would we go back in and deduct those from what we're gonna ask for?
No, because the figure for FY19 includes, for the expenditure side, if it's a grant, let's say, just use 100,000, it's 100,000 grant. So on the revenue side, I'll put 100,000, and on the expenditure side, I put 100,000, so it's a wash, it's not an
Balances it out.
increase.
Okay,
But as you're comparing budget to budget, it looks like an increase.
Okay.
So
That
it
makes
gets confusing between.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
okay. Let's talk about what's not in here. Well, first of all, 4.5 RTI positions are included in whatever the state funds are coming to us, right?
We, on the BEP, which is about 44,000, we got 4.5 positions, so I think it comes out to be a total of 193,000 or something like
For
that.
those positions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's in
BEP.
addition to the money coming from the state for a raise?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. I don't know whether, I think we all need to be made aware that in the last legislature, the Finance Committee, because many systems, as Ways and Means Chairman Representative Charles Sargent put in the bill, and it was passed by the Senate and the House, that anything that has been appropriated for raises goes to teachers. It not to be waylaid to be something else. So I think our choice here is how we use it, whether it's going to be a 1% raise, a 2% raise, and those costs, and I think you've given us those costs as well, but a 1% is $731,000, and a 2% is 1.462. And if we can look at just a minute what I've given you, and if you have comments, any of y'all can make that. This is at our present salary right now, beginning at 6,259. A 1% raise would make at the 2 position, it'd be 38,907. So you would start out, your starting salary would be 38,907. You can look there to see how that would reflect there, because it would be 38,907,012. I haven't calculated a 2%, but you can just about know that it would be that much more than that. I've only calculated a 1%, although I want a 2%. Just let me tell all of you out there. But I want to say, because I know you all received some word from MCEA that is not supporting that. But if you will look at the surrounding counties and how that will put us in a good place in recruiting teachers, first of all, we know people are moving to the northern part of the state. Mr. Bates has made us aware of how they're going to be moving to the southern part of the state. So we want in those people that move here to be teachers, maybe experienced teachers as well, that they'll want to work and live in Murray County, and that's where they'll be teaching. I don't know that the beginning teacher is the one that's going to move here, but it's going to, whatever you do at the beginning and do that, it will reflect in the whole scale. I just think it's good business to be able to be competitive with those counties that are around us. I think that, I've said it before, and you're probably tired of me saying it, learning just happens in the classroom with a good teacher. And a great teacher, great learning happens. And so I really, one of the things when I put my name to run for the school board, I said I wanted to make sure that we had continue to have good benefits, salary, and to attract teachers to come to our county. I think it's a great place to work, and I want them to know that, but I want them to be compensated as well. And I absolutely agree. We have a great insurance package. There's no question about that. And so you can kind of figure that as well as what that would go on top of that. And I know that when you all go to recruit, that is a big part of what you give out and tell them. Exactly. To make this happen at a 1%, it's about $142,000. And once again, I'm an art teacher, so I just look at figures. I would make sure that it was, I'm visual. But it's just something, I think that was a figure you all had given us. My question with the first page of this, and I see that you that it starts saying considerations based on revenue. There's nothing increase in there for teachers, or employees for that matter. We're talking about a 1% for everybody,
Okay.
or 2% for everybody. And that's what Ms. Gagliano told me that her figures reflected for everybody. So not just certificated employees. The figures on things that are not in there on that second page. You know, there was a lot of work done on athletic stipends. A lot of work. Chris Pointer put his heart and soul into it. And we haven't even, that hasn't even been brought to us. And that was talking about giving stipends to fine arts, to theater arts, to,
Those are in there.
yeah,
They're in there.
I thought you took them out last week.
No, what we took out was they were proposing an alternative structure to athletic stipends to be, if you go to the playoffs, you get more money. If you go deeper in the playoffs, you get more money. If you make it to a championship game, you get more money. What we've proposed in this budget is the same athletic stipends as they are now, plus a budget of $114,000 for arts teachers at the elementary, middle school, and high school that do after-school events such as choir, chorus, drama, and Destination Imagination.
What about academic teams?
What do you mean academic
We don't
teams?
give them their academic teams at most of the high school, competitive teams.
Nobody has raised that up as a concern. The only concern that I've had is arts.
Really?
Nobody's said anything to me about academic teams. No, ma'am.
Oh, we've competed all over the state.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying there are other, you know,
Gotcha.
that everything is done after school.
Yes.
And I know it's all about money in the bottom line, but, I mean, I just want to bring these up for consideration.
Gotcha.
And I want to hear what you all think. I see no one. We adjourn the meeting. I'm not on a page. I'm looking at this right here. This right here. Uh-huh.
Ms. Kins, I'd like to touch on the athletic supplements.
Okay.
One of the things that increased, this year in fiscal year 18 was when we gave the 3% raise, that also made a significant increase in what it would cost for our coaches. I think that increased the cost for athletic supplements somewhere around $200,000 more than we had anticipated. So as we look at giving those raises, we do have to think about the ripple effect that it has down the line. So it makes, you may have the same number of coaches, but you can pay more for those coaches in the long run once you give those percent increases plus the step raises every year. So it's just something to consider. And I don't know if Mr. Lang, if you'd like to say a word too about that, Mr. Lang. Would you like to say a couple words or athletics?
Well, I think you kind of covered it. In particular, I'll come back to it.
All right. Yeah, thank you.
So
Excuse
how
me.
are we going to get this done? I mean, come on, guys. How are we going to get this done? It's like going in the store and shopping and seeing all the things you want, and you can't
Yeah.
have all that.
And so,
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Bennings.
Go ahead.
And I totally agree. I mean, if you raise the salaries, you're raising the stipend they get. We can raise the salaries and make a motion or whatever to freeze the stipends at this year's wage. That way you're only raising their base salary, you're not raising the stipend.
Or instead of making stipends a percentage, you make them a flat amount. So one of the things that we did, like for example, one of the things that we did with the arts is if you're an elementary school teacher and you spend at least 70 hours on chorus and you're signed off by your principal, you get an additional $1,200. If you're a middle school teacher, you spend at least 100 hours on chorus, you get $1,500. If you're a high school teacher and you spend over 120 hours on, because I'm trying to remember, then you get $1,500. So we had it at a set amount. So even if we do the 3% raise or 4% raise, or even if salaries raise, the elementary, middle school, and arts teachers, it's a set amount, and you know what you're going to get every single year. So think about if you're a brand new teacher, and if you do a 3%, but you're not up to $1,200, then that's actually a benefit for you because you're going to make more money. But if you're a seasoned teacher, and you would normally on a 3% make $1,400, but you're going to make $1,200, it may be a disincentive to do it. But then again, what I've found with most of the arts teachers is they're already doing it for free anyway. This is an investment in them to say, thank you for what you do. Please continue to move on. Because one of the things I talked about to Cindy Pride yesterday is Destination Imagination has taken off in this county. Riverside now has a team. Randolph-Howell has a team. Santa Fe has a team. There's a lot of them that have teams, and some of them have qualified for globals. So that is, it's kind of like Odyssey of the Mind. That is a great arts after-school activity that I think we want to nourish with our kids and our teachers to continue to use, to implement.
It's really more than an arts program. I know you're familiar with it, but some people aren't familiar with it. It's more, I would say, a STEAM program. They use everything, and these kids are amazing what they do. So I agree with you as far as that's concerned.
I agree also. But honestly, it has been written and proven that any school or system that has a strong arts program, it enhances everything. It's going to enhance teaching the standards and everything else. So if we can all agree to that, we can go on to the next thing.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any questions, comments? One of the things, yes, at the work session that we discussed was the software program that we had. Once again, that's a big, that's a big expense, isn't it? I've given some thought to it, just thinking and hearing the presentation and knowing that Discovery Ed was a 3 to 5 year program and how many teachers are invested in that and how much time and effort has been put into it. I personally would like to see that one continued.
Yeah.
I don't know how to judge the others particularly. I know that we looked at Ms. Preminger's statistics and, certainly some of the usage is here and there.
And scorecard.
And scorecard.
That's one of the things that I told you guys is if you're going to invest in these programs, I'm going to scorecard it. That scorecard is a part of my own evaluation. It's my goal to increase the usage over time. And kind of going back to what I said last night, when you start to move around, then you start to impact professional development. And then you start to, because let's say we back off Dreambox and go with iExcel. We then now have to retrain teachers on how to use iExcel. And that's an impact to professional development. My goal or my wish would be, let's continue. I mean, because we have to have some kind of elementary math program. We have to have some kind of middle school, high school math program. We have to have some kind of program that teachers can do blended learning, where some direct instruction, some kids work on tech, and then switch around. We have kids now that have one-on-one devices, so they have greater access to the program. Freeware is great. I'm not going to debate Chair Parker on that. Freeware is great, but with a lot of freeware, we might as well save the money and use worksheets, because a lot of them are low-level skill and drill. Which bubble demonstrates 1/2, and you click all the 1/2 bubbles. That's the same as coloring a worksheet that has 1/2. And what I really like about Dreambox or Mayan or 10 Marks is when the teacher logs into the admin program, you get to see how each of your individual kids is performing. You can drill down to an individual kid. How long did they spend? Where are they struggling? Here's a suggestion on bringing a kid to a table and helping them learn the skill using kinesthetic, using their finger type activities. A lot of these programs have research behind them, but they also have suggestions for the teacher to get in to use them. So one of the things that we showed you guys was when teachers in Dreambox, for example, use the administrative dashboard, their kids outperform other like peers with concerns to Ames Web as compared to other kids across the country. So what we're trying to do this year is continue to use the dashboard, continue to go deeper, continue to implement the program, and your kids are only going to do better over time. And so we're trying to be as frugal as we possibly can. Like for example, one of the things that Dr. Woodard said is we're cutting out next lesson. That was a project-based learning program that bridged us from doing nothing to Discovery Education. So we don't really see the usage in it. Not only that, teachers are getting more professional development with project-based learning. They're able to do more on their own. We don't necessarily need the bridge program anymore. So next lesson can go away. And I think that cost was what, $75,000? That's $75,000. We don't need it anymore. It's no longer beneficial because a majority of our teachers are at that point where they can start to do stuff that they learned from Discovery Ed. So trying to be as fiscally conservative as we can while still offering supports for people to use programs in the classroom.
Ms. Morency.
So how do we get our principals and teachers to use these? Because I look at, and I serve on the leadership team at Mount Pleasant Elementary, and they're one of the ones that push back the most against using them. So I'm just wondering how we get our teachers and our administrators to say, you have to use these.
Yeah.
If we're gonna pay for it, then I think they need to use it. And I don't know if it's training or if it's maybe some of the principals and can answer that for us, or Dr. Woodard. My concern is that we're paying for this stuff and they're going, well, we don't really like it, so we're not gonna use it. And come down to the budget, it's a big number in the budget.
Yep.
So and I understand what you're saying and I agree with what you're saying, but my concern is if we're gonna pay for it, I would like to see them using it.
So it's a multi-pronged problem. Number one, and I'm guilty of it as well, being a college professor, is academic freedom. Having the ability to bring things into my classroom that I want to use, that I think are good for my kids. The other prong is we're kind of at that point where we've said, we've encouraged, we've supported, get to the point, continue to use more and more and more, but we're now at the point after 2 years of implementation of, if you're not using it, is it because you don't want to use it, or is there something else going on? Because in some instances, I've visited schools, some kids were not doing it, they were doing another freeware program or something, and the response from the educator was, well, my kids just don't want to use it. And so the response is, principal, you have to use this first. When your time is up, then you can use other things, but this is primary right now. And we're kind of at that point. We're at the end of year 2. So if you're not using it, it's really because you don't want to use it. Now, what I need from the board, which I kind of expressed at the last meeting, was I need support from the board. Because last year, I added Dreambox and Maya into the scorecard, and certain board members hammered me over it. Why are you making them use it? Why are you making them do the minutes? Why are you making? And I need support to go, you have to use it, because that's what the board agreed that we would be using as a school district. And I need that support as a superintendent. Beyond that, all I can do is, well, encourage more. But I need support. I need support to look at principals and say, you have to use it, guys. You don't have a choice. The board is purchasing it. You got to use it. And then they get to turn around and they can turn to their educators and go, guys, I know there's other programs you want to use, but you got to use this. You really don't have a choice.
Madam Chair,
Penny, excuse me.
I believe that you can solve that problem pretty simply. Of course, I'm hardcore boss. You put it in your contract. If we say as a board, you are going to use this, you're going to use it. Period. End of discussion. If you're not using it, you're violating your contract. Whether it's a principal, a teacher, an administrator, I don't care who they are. When you're the boss, you're the boss. You tell them what to do. You either do what I tell you to do, or that door opens and swings both ways. Put it right in the contract.
Jim, I understand what you're saying, but I also think that there's a better way to do this. I think that we need to get everybody on board with it, and that's my question really, is how we go about doing that. I mean, I know I've talked to a lot of teachers, and I believe that every one of them think that what they're doing is the best way to do it. I really believe that. So when they tell me, well, my kids would rather use this program, and the only way I can get them to use this one is to tell them that when you get this done, then you can go to that one because they like that one better. I think that they're really trying to do what's right, but I also know that there's no way that we can check our stats if they're not doing what we're asking them to do. So it's more educating, and I think the principals at each school are capable of getting their teachers to do what they need to do. I may be wrong, but that's what I think. I think if the principals ask for that and tell them that it's necessary that they do it, that they'll fall in line and do it. I just think there's a better way than putting it in a contract.
And I'm not gonna say I disagree with you, it's just, we've had programs like the math program that we were paying $300,000 a year for, and they just weren't using it. If you have a proven program, and the program works, and you just have some people that say, my students don't like it, the students will like it if you show them how to use it, show them how it will benefit them, because when they get to college or beyond, they're not gonna get the choice. They're gonna be told what program or what they have to use to do. So it's not only instructing them in the basics, it's instructing them about life and how life goes on.
And we have some successful implementations around the county of the various programs we have. If we had no successful implementations, then that would cause me concern as a superintendent. But we have some successful people. We have some people that are having success with their students, with their programs. But it kind of goes back to what Mr. Pennings is talking about. And you know this, Ms. Kinzer, whatever you're excited about, your kids get excited about it. I'm not a big fan of accelerated reader, but where accelerated reader works is where their teacher is invested in that program. The kids get invested in the program. They build incentives, they build momentum behind it, they put up billboards, and the kids really like it. We've got to do more of that around the county, and that then in turn goes back to support from the board. Because if I mandate, they're gonna come to you guys, and they're gonna ask you, no, we need to get rid of this, we don't need to use this. I need the board members to say to those individual teachers, guys, I get it, I understand, but you gotta use it. You have to use it. You gotta listen to Marzak, you have to use it. That's what I need.
Well, in sitting in this seat, I don't know which one works better. You know, and so, but until we use it and are consistent in using it and have the data that we can, it may not be, Dreambox may not be what we want. But until we use it consistently and we have the data for it, then how, as a board, are we to make that determination, is my question.
I'd like to chime in, Ms. Kinzer. Just want to say a couple of things I think will clarify some of this. First things first, we have made a dramatic instructional shift this year. As you all know, that this was slated to be the reclassification year where all schools would be classified A through F, and we knew what we had to do. You know, performance was low the previous year, and we came out swinging. And we made a really big instructional shift to making sure that we're teaching assessed standards in the classroom, making sure that we started the year with academic expectations. I laid those academic expectations to principals. Principals turned around and gave those academic expectations to teachers, and we focused on mastery. We made sure that we were collaborating in schools, and so we really had a really good stern focus on academics. These programs are designed to supplement instruction. They're not designed to be leading instruction. The number one thing that improves outcomes for students is having a top-notch teacher in every classroom. And when we have a great teacher in every classroom, we'll see scores go through the roof. And so where we're going next year is focusing on that. This year, me being new to this role, it was about what I call structure to instruction. We built a structure in place this year to yield itself to great instruction. Next year, we're going to focus more on human capital investment, more investment on pedagogy, more investment on professional development, so that we can deepen the knowledge that our teachers have, so we have great classroom instructors in every classroom. But what I want to say is that these programs are a supplement to instruction. And so we have a great teacher in the room delivering high quality content every day. And then, of course, when we get to the RTI time, when we get to the time where kids need an extra push, they can utilize these programs to supplement that academic instruction. What I think was happening before was an over-reliance on these programs where kids are just being placed on the programs all day. We don't want that either. So we've shifted that focus back to great classroom instruction and moving to using the programs the way they should be. And so if we're doing that, you are going to see a little bit of a decrease in the usage, as opposed to having a teacher that may be just putting the kids on the program and doing what? Not teaching. So, and I'll be honest with you, we've seen some pockets where that has happened. So what is the remedy to that? the remedy to that is having an effective instructional leader in every school. And so we've worked earnestly also to work with our principals to make sure that they're being instructional leaders who are holding teachers accountable for what's happening in those classrooms. And I hold those principals accountable. And principals have heard me say it over and over like a broken record, that making sure that they know what's happening in their building, it's a Nike situation, and that means just do it. So we have really been getting after it, and we have really been making sure that we are putting the hammer down in terms of knowing what's happening. But that's what we need, great classroom teachers in every building, and that's what matters.
Mr. Beaver?
Thank you, ma'am. You know, all of our programs we're talking about here is all device-based, right? Computer-based. And we don't have computers in every kid's hand. All right, and you know, and not to throw Tommy on the bus. I mean, you know, I know he's done a great job and he's still working hard. But Wi-Fi is not always up to par at all these schools. And, you know, I can see where it would get very frustrating to the teachers, to the kids, when you say, okay, do this for 30 minutes or an hour, and they can't get on the Wi-Fi. So, I mean, you know, there's a lot of things that contribute to the actions that we're seeing. And another thing is with K through 2, you know, my understanding is they have very little curriculum. And you know, so, you know, that's another problem. And so how do we, you know, keep the teachers from getting frustrated, keep the kids from getting frustrated, and you know, everyone you're talking about has got a computer in their hand, but don't all schools and all kids have computers or Wi-Fi.
Yeah, so to pop on that, over the last two superintendent teacher council meetings, I've been asking, how's Wi-Fi? Not a problem. One issue at Spring Hill Elementary School, Mr. Schuyler addressed that. Because I want to know, because, I mean, we spent a sizable amount of money to raise all of our schools to 10 gigabyte Wi-Fi. We spent a sizable amount on that. The last two teacher councils, they're very pleased with the way Wi-Fi is going. But what I told them is if something is a problem, please submit a help ticket. Please get that to Mr. Schuyler so that he can jump on it and figure out a patch and figure out what's going on. True, all kids do not have devices. One of the things is this past week I asked Dr. Preninger, I would like to run a usage report on kids that have devices and have had them all year versus kids that haven't. I was really surprised at the usage level of kids with one program. I'd said just Dreambox, just start off small. I don't want to do the whole gamut. The usage of kids that had a one-to-one device versus the kids that didn't was really no greater than the kids that didn't. And I was kind of surprised at that because you have greater access throughout the course of the day and also at night when you take it home. I should have seen the charts completely different, but they were pretty comparable. So you can use a classroom bay of computers. You can use a Chromebook cart. You can use different, you don't have to have one-to-one in order to use these programs because what we have is kids getting onto the program throughout the course of the week at all versus just not getting on it at all. And we've got some kids in the district that have not been on Dreambox at all. Some. And so what we do is we follow up with principals. How are you having conversations with teachers? What are you talking to them about? How are they logging into the program? How are the teachers using the admin dashboard? Over the last 2 years, how have you integrated it? We're kind of at that point where it's 2 years. Year 3, you have to get on. You've got to get kids logged in. They've got to, I mean, even if they use it 5 minutes a week, that's better than not using it at all, 0 minutes per week. So the conversation is basically ongoing, sir.
Dreambox, we're not renewing. Wasn't it mine and Dreambox, we're not next year?
We had said that if we could renew them, if you want to cut them, cut them.
I thought there was a discussion about that yesterday. Last night. Yeah, I think
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just stayed here.
It all runs together.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Just to clarify, As I mentioned yesterday, if it's Christmas and we have a Christmas list, we'd like to keep all the programs, and let's give it more time. If we're in a situation, which I think we are, where our backs are against the wall for dollars due to where we are with the budget, then if we had to offer something up, then we would offer up those two programs. But we would have to find another way to measure Key 2 and Key 3. One of the things we're going to do next year is that we've already added some additional measures to the scorecard. So the scorecard will now measure starting next year. And I was going to present this to you at a later time, but this is, a good time. We're going to be looking at measuring TVOS. We're going to be looking at where schools, what their overall rating will be, A through F, once that finally fully kicks in. We're also going to be measuring graduation rate, putting that into the scorecard starting next year for high schools. We're also going to be measuring the ready graduate component, which is how many kids have a 21 or higher ACT composite, et cetera. So we're going to put more measures in that are actual test driven. So we know we're going to have data back from the state. So we're going to be looking at some of those things in addition to how we look at the usage and effectiveness of the programs as well.
Well, once we get a budget, then we'll think about it.
Because, and going back to the last budget meeting, three proposals. What are we going to the county commission for? Are we going to start to roll back initiatives? Or are we going to start to right-size the district and start to capture things with FTEs? Where does the board want to go?
I want to, whatever these figures are, need to include, just as you responded to David Hubner, that you're looking at freezing the first 0 through 2 and a 2% raise. That was in your email. So I want those figures to be in here.
Which one?
2%. That's what you
2%.
told him. That was in your email. Oh, of course they would, but I'm saying as far as
What
us
would it look
working,
like?
I'm not, absolutely, we'd have to vote
What's a
on it.
2%?
But we're mandated to give a raise by the state now, when the money has to go for raises. And the reason for that is interesting, because some counties have gotten the money, they haven't used it for raises, when the raise really is Tennessee wants their to go up in a national, to look better, and so that their average is better. And Murray County's right a little bit above the state average, so that's good.
So let me,
I have a question.
All right, Ms. Morizzi.
The money that we get from the state for raises, that will not do a 2% raise, okay? Will it do a 1% raise for everybody?
I think he's gonna get it out, but typically, okay, the way they did it in the formula, they took the salary that they use for each position and they increased that salary by 2%. But then when you follow through the formula to what it generates for us, and then what our fiscal capacity and all that is, so it's a portion of that total. So I know previously in my other world, it was about a third. It funded about a third. Here, I think it's a bit more, because you just have your two basic revenues are BEP and county. And I believe the BEP is about 60%. So,
You gave, Dr. Marzak was 731 for 1%, and double that, 1.462.
yeah, that was what I calculated.
Right.
That included the benefits. So it's
Right.
$1,462,000.
That's with everything, right.
For,
And then to freeze it, we're talking about the beginning part of it. Once again, I'm thinking it was about 142,
It is, it was 138.
138.
And that was with everything.
$3,000 right
Yeah,
there.
there you go.
But I mean, we can sit here all night. There are other things in here I think we need to look at. I think we need to look at parallel, the cost of that. We're paying $20 and then we're paying in addition to that salary. I've had teachers that I've talked to when I've been at the schools that have talked about how this is difficult. They don't know when somebody's, they don't know who it is. The way substitutes were handled in the past, all the years I was teaching, and I think up to this, other than the other time we did it, and that was a disaster, there's someone on staff, it could be the principal, it could be the assistant principal, it might be the secretary, that would schedule those substitutes. HR just gives them a list. They just generate a list of people that have been approved, gone through the process and made sure they're not a criminal and all those sort of things. So I don't know why, if it's not working that well, why are we paying them $20 to do what, we hadn't reduced the staff in HR in order to pay for that. So I'm just, I don't know why we
wouldn't
need
have
it.
reduced staff in HR. And from what I'm getting, it is working better. Our fill rates have increased. I gave you all a report last month about the fill rates have increased. We're getting more substitutes than what we could do. HR did recruit those substitutes, and we did do the initial onboarding for substitutes. The substitutes have been traditionally called by a secretary, bookkeeper, or principal at a school whenever a teacher calls in. We're not getting complaints. The surveys that we put out, of course, we didn't have a lot of response, and we're re-putting those surveys out again to teachers and wanting to get more of a response. But all the response that we've seen is positive. They have praised both the training and the quality of the substitute, as well as principals have told me that their fill rates are much better.
The only thing I'm going by, Dr. Marzak has this thing about board members going to interview for jobs. So I've tried to do that when I can. I've made it to just about all my elementary schools and middle schools to do that. So I've tried to ask while we're together about it. And most of the elementary schools said they lost their really good ones they used regularly, knew the kids, knew the teacher, knew how their classroom management was, and you know, that's really important. And they wouldn't know who was coming in, wouldn't know if they were for sure coming in. Huh?
I would be interested in that, because from what Parallel reported and from what I've seen, we retained a lot of the subs that were already working, and the teachers can actually request a sub that they want. So there's a preferred list for the schools. There was really no change as far as, except that Parallel is the one that employs them. We kept and retained many of the same subs, and the teachers can still request a specific sub.
What's our difference in our fill rate from when we started Parallel? And
It's going up every month. I think the first month, and I'm just doing this by memory from
Right.
that report, was 1%. It's up to 4 or 5%, and I think it was as high as 7% one month, and that's even gotten better. We're running fill rates of 98, 99, and even 100%.
well,
now.
because I know that was why we went with Parallel,
Yes.
because our fill rates were so bad, and the teachers were complaining that they were having to take their time to go and take other classes and do double up on classes and that kind of thing. So I think that's why we went with Parallel, and if that's what's happening, I don't know, going back, if that's the right, a smart thing to do.
And some of those savings we're not going to feel until the end after we close out the books, because we won't have to pay for e-school anymore. That's about a $16,000 savings to the district every year. There's a lot of drug testing we don't have to pay for anymore. Background checks we don't have to pay for anymore, as well as the labor that you don't really see in numbers, but that the schools are feeling in labor costs. Because now that bookkeeper, instead of having to schedule 10 or 15 substitutes to come in, can start on actual work, other than trying to recruit and get subs in on a daily basis for teachers that are out. We're having a lot of attendance, as far as our attendance being increased, so we're using a lot more subs. It is going to feel like we're spending more money because we are using more subs. So we're going to try to get teachers, the attendance rate, them to be at school more, and then I think that will help decrease some of the costs for the subs.
It's okay, not a problem. I have figures for you.
All right.
Okay, so we have, in the BEP, we get money for 821.66 personnel, okay?
Right.
The increase on those 821.66 personnel, going from an average salary from 46,225 to 47,150, was an additional $760,035. So if we divide that amount out, what we need to do is we need to decide, Do you want to do across the board, all 1,600 employees? I don't know if you guys just want to do just licensed personnel, because then non-certificated personnel, who are people that typically make less money, that's kind of a morale hit to them. It's kind of a punch in the gut. If we did all 1,600 employees in Murray County Public Schools, that would mean that every employee would get an additional $475 over what they got last year. So when we look at a 1% is equated to $700,000?
731,000. 731.
731?
Didn't you say we were gonna get, how much did you say we would get for those 800?
When I raised 46,225 salary to 47,150 and multiplied that times 821.66 positions that the BEP funds, that gave me a total of 760,035. So we could do a 1% raise, yeah.
But did you figure, if you pull it out to the side in that formula where you only get so much percent of that total?
Mhm.
Did you do that?
No, probably not.
I've got,
No.
I was gonna say, I've got,
No, I probably did not do that right.
Right, if you go up a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Go,
yeah, right.
go down, gotcha.
Down. See the box that says how much
It's-
percent you actually get?
What he's saying is that the BEP is gonna pay for 821.66 positions.
70.4%.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
75,
This is, I've got the
70.4%
formula
of the
here.
total is what you'll actually get.
Well, that's,
Okay.
no, that's how many
You mean
they will
70.4
pay
of this?
for it. I mean, that's just the
Oh,
number.
okay, got you. So multiply that times,
If it was
okay.
1% or no percent, that's how many.
760,035 times point.
Okay, they're giving 2% over and above the
70.
average salary of the state.
532,000.
That's how many that they give BEP money, period.
So, did you get your 760 by multiplying the difference between the two?
They
or
would
what
get
the total
2%
salary was for each?
Over and
Yeah.
above that. I mean,
So basically
yes.
what I did is I
But-
took 820.
And then it would cover double that, 1,600.
No. This is- That's,
So, sorry, the number is not 760,035, it's 532,532,024.
that's how much we'll be getting, 4 raises from the
That's
state.
how much we could do, 4 raises from the governor's budget from BEP. So
Right.
that equates to about 0.75%.
So if 1%, 731, 2%, 1,462, and we know we have, let me ask you this too, are you, you put 9 new teaching positions in the, that first page of that budget. Are those positions you're gonna hire right away, or are you gonna wait for ADM? Or ADA? ADM. Yeah. On that first page, there's 9 positions.
Yeah.
Actually, and there, you funded them at 80, if you divide 9 into $765,000, that makes it an average of 85,000 per position. That's a little bit much.
Plus
don't you think?
bennies.
Huh?
Benefits too, salary and benefits.
It never, even at the highest end, it wouldn't be 85 for a, it should be about 63, 657 at
Let's
the
take a look
highest.
at that again.
What's the average salary?
6 times 410 divided by 9. Oh, yeah, it could have to be 85.
So you're not, I mean, it's not even gonna be 85 if they are a doctorate with 20 years. No. So that's another figure that needs to be adjusted probably. So I just wanna get the figures right. I
budget
wanna
end.
get the numbers right. I wanna see where we are and,
Drop.
Let me try to bring a little bit of clarity to that. We did, what we were trying to do is be a little more proactive than what we've done in the past. Typically, when we get our projections, we have waited to the first 20-day count to find out who's really going to come, which schools are going to be over, and then we try to add. And I think the way they've done that in the budget is by padding the 116 line by a certain percentage, and then, of course, hiring new teachers when they show up, when the kids show up and we have overages. what we're doing this year with the projections is going through all the projections and saying, okay, based on the BEP formula, we'll look at which schools need, one position or which schools would lose a position, et cetera. And what we came up with is, since enrollment is slated to go up overall, we counted that we would need about 9 positions to hire overall. Multiply those times 65,000 each, which came out to be somewhere a little bit over $500,000. And then, of course, I think the additional income is what it would be for insurance and Medicare and pensions and all that for those 9 positions.
I think you need to check those numbers.
Yeah, but yes, I do.
And that's not my issue. I'm asking you, are you gonna wait and hire those positions, those 9 positions, as needed at ADM? Or are you gonna hire them before they walk in the door?
I would say we'll be waiting. I
All
think
right,
we're
then
putting this
there's
in.
monies
We're
that
putting
can be
this in.
saved.
We're putting this in case, just to be proactive.
If we're trying to reach the funds for a 1 or 2% raise, then as we did this last year, you're probably not gonna hire them till October or November, because that's when ADM is, correct? I mean, that's when we know the numbers then. And then we have
Correct.
a little
First
thing
20-day
called
count.
attrition, where, if we hire these at this great new salary that we may give them to attract them, that's still way lower than that retiring teacher is making. So, last year we were able to, adjust the budget for those things and to give a really good raise to our employees as we discussed that.
Can I just jump in on there? You'll find in your expenditure report at the budget, at the board meeting this time, that I did make a note in there, the teacher line item for FY18 that you are referring to. It looks like you're gonna be about $900 and some thousand short. It's under budgeted at this point. So that money's gonna have to come from somewhere else. So that's also part of the increase in that line item, because we gotta make up for that plus add to it. So, I understand what you're trying to accomplish. I'd really prefer to do it in another way. I'd rather budget for the line item to the best of our ability up front. And that could mean doing some more analysis of when those people might actually come on board and that kind of thing. And looking at the number, it was a joint venture between Ron and I think he might have added the benefits first, and I got a whole number, and then I added the benefits to it. So it might be a double header benefit there, so we can tweak that down, so.
But we've changed it, so.
I thought, when I looked at it, and it was way over there to the corner, I thought maybe, maybe I better check that out. Yeah, and I think there's some things we're gonna have to check before we can even really dig into it any deeper. I mean, we've got to dig into it deeper, but just the T and E to those numbers, I just don't understand where those 50 employees are. And so if we're budgeting for 903, then that's certainly not enough. Or if we're budgeting for the right amount, and so maybe the T and E is wrong, we're not figuring whatever. So I think it's important that we have the right figures
Right,
and
I don't
everything.
think that T&E was used at all for the budget. We just produced that for you had requested that. I think we've actually
So
went
it's
through.
not correct?
No, we didn't use that for budget purposes. Karen didn't ask for a T&E report. What we ran was something, it was through Skyward, and it was rosters of actual positions, and then we also took vacancies into account
Well,
as well.
then how did you make the T and E?
Well, I'll have to look and see, and I've got a feeling that some of these positions that were reported before through Zortec also were an interim position that might have been held, so it's gonna show 2 positions in that one position. That was just the nature of Zortec. Skyward doesn't do that. It will take those out for us and filter those. So I can certainly look.
Well, a T&E is a pretty useful tool in figuring all this, and if it needs to be, I would think it needs to be correct if I'm an art teacher trying to figure out how to multiply these things, and I need to know the correct numbers. They need to be correct.
Know that it's wrong.
Okay, that's fine. Are there any other, so go back, cut half of this out.
And really, I think from the board, it's, what number do you want to go to the county commission for? That's really the key thing to determine. And kind of going back to what, we've heard multiple times, tell us what you need. Tell us what you need. If we go to them and say, guys, we're looking at historical investment over time. We're looking at surrounding counties not stepping up and investing in education. You saw what happened in Nashville. You see what's going on in Williamson. This is a great time for us to invest in education in Murray County. What are you willing to invest in? And we go to them and we tell them what we need. And they may look at us and laugh. But we're coming to them and doing what they asked us to do, which is to tell them what we need. And if we look, and this budget is aligned to the strategic plan. You guys talked about diploma, you talked about keys, you talked about innovative learning, you talked about being creative. That's what we budgeted. You talked about investment in facilities. That's part of the strategic plan, because Mr. Breeden has got to have adequate and safe facilities in our community. We budgeted according to the strategic plan. If you guys invest in the strategic plan and go to the commission and say, this is our plan, this is what we're budgeting, this is what we need, we see what happens. That's the key point.
Mr. Dudley?
Well, that's exactly what I'd like for us to do. Tell them what we need, and then if they say we just can't fund that, then we can look at cuts but you know, I think it's our duty and our obligation to tell them what we need. I've never seen us present a budget to them where they come back and say, you know, we think you need another $4 or $5 million. I mean, if you didn't ask for it up front, they're not going to give it to us. And so I think we need to tell them what we need, and then if we have to cut following that, so be it.
Well, there's only 5 of us here. Is it 5? Yes. I'm still here from last night. I counted you too, so. I don't know where to go from here. I really don't. You know, I don't know. I think there is a budget meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, but what are we going to do? Correct some of the numbers, maybe? I don't know. You tell me. Oh, Mr. Pennings.
Mr. Dudley had his light on first.
Sorry, I looked over at you.
Well, with our budget meetings, I mean, if the other members decide not to be here, that's their decision. I think we have to make our decisions moving forward on the opinions of the ones that did show up for the meetings. And the others may have a difference of opinion, but you know, the fact that they were not here to voice their opinion, we had to keep moving on. We can't, you know, wait till we have 11 members here to move this process forward. We've got timelines that we have to meet, and so I think Dr. Marzag and staff needs to base it on the discussions we've had at this table tonight.
Well, I agree with Mr. Dudley, and you've heard me say this forever. Tell the commission what we need. I mean, that's what we're elected to do, is in our best judgment, tell the commission what we need. And if they refuse it, they refuse it. I mean, at least we know. I would say I would like to see the right figures in any document we receive next week. Make sure it's all right. Make sure the new positions that you see you need, that they get filled. Because there was and I'm not saying they weren't or were, but there were 4 positions at Withorn that are still up in the air. I had somebody come to me today and say those positions were never filled. I'm not here to argue that. What I'm here to say is let's make sure if every position we have that we say we're going to fill, we fill. And that we fill with a qualified teacher. We had that problem this last year. So we don't need those problems. But we need the right figures. Tell the commission what we need. Let them make a decision, and we'll move on from there.
Ms. Morency?
I guess my question is there anything in here that you don't think we need? Stan, I'm talking to all of you. That you don't need, that that we absolutely don't need.
Or we could live with that.
No, that we don't need.
I will tell you there are things that we do need that are not in there.
Okay. Ron?
You know, actually, I wanted to ask you all what you thought about this, and I'd love to know, you know, what you all have been thinking. But you asked me first, so I have to go.
Okay.
We have really gone through this and tried to trim the fat as much as possible. We really have. I think we need just about everything that's in here. Again, we can go back and look at programs. You know, I thought about this. If we cut all the programs that we have, that's $1.7 million. That still doesn't really put us anywhere near where we, you know, need to be. We just have needs. I think we're growing as a county, and I think that you know, we at some point have to just go to the commission and ask for what we need in order to sustain our system. I think it's time.
So we've got building, and we've got maintenance,
Curriculum,
and we've got
curriculum concerns.
and it's Stan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, Ron gave such a long answer, I thought I need to add just a little.
I like
Just to
your
say
answer,
that,
actually.
I agree, there's nothing, as I told you, there's things in there I think we need that are not in there. However, we make whatever work, you know, I mean, we will make it work,
Yeah,
but
that wasn't my question.
it will
My
shortchange,
question
it will
was,
shortchange our schools
Do you
if we
feel
do.
comfortable that all of these things in here are things that we need to ask for? Okay.
We didn't-
So go to the budget impact summary, FY19 items requested but not funded. So those were items that we deemed that didn't need to go in there. So when we talked about athletic stipends, the new plan, resource and developing marketing personnel, partial funding of athletics and arts programs at schools, and that means like buying band instruments, buying uniforms, buying stuff like that. Reducing special education supplies and materials by $25,000. There's still a $75,000 request, and they're down from $100. Family resource supplements, replacing the director of programs, and then also the CTE clerk and CTE assistant. So we've already removed $1.758 million of things that we as an executive team deemed we would love to have them, but we could live without them. So we've already reduced it by $2 million almost. So
Okay.
what you have in here is everything that we're saying as a school system we need.
Well, then I agree with Jim and Tommy in that we need to make sure these numbers are right. And then as far as I'm concerned, I would like to present this to the county commission with this, with reasons to back up why we need these things. Karen?
I would just add that, you know, just from past experience, your biggest expense is your staff. And I think that some attention could go towards looking at right-sizing in some cases that may help you fund, you know, other things. Just because if you have less staff to take care of, you can do a better job. But that's such a large ticket in the budget that it's always worth looking at.
So do you think that we do that before we go and do our ask, or is that something that
It's probably, you know, depending on what kind of strategy you want to take. I've always tried to present something that was my best. You know, you don't have to send me back to do it. I've already done it, kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
And this is the best thing that I can bring to you and still cover all the bases. So, you know, it's just in what kind of strategy you want to do. You know, that might be something you come back and do if you're turned down. It's also a positive note to show that you've done it if you go there with it done. So
Okay.
it's however you want to present it.
All right. That's how I feel about this, you know.
Mr. Dudley?
Well, I'm not sure what you're getting at about right-sizing the staff. I think every one of our departments are operating with fewer personnel than what they feel like they need, and including your department. So, I mean, I know maintenance, which is under Mr. Breeding, he's, you know, constantly able to do miracles with the few staff members he has, and as well as each of our other departments, and I certainly don't want to start cutting educational personnel. I think our bus drivers are at what it takes to meet the standards the state requires. As is pointed out, they've even got some of their staff that run as alternate bus drivers, and so.
I guess what I'm referring to is the items that are based on enrollment. So it's the student-teacher ratio dial. Your departments are already at skeleton size, but if you look at every single class and you look at student-teacher ratio, that is where, in my experience, we have made adjustments in other districts that have, allowed us to do, because you have all these new things you want to do, and so if you keep all of the old and then add all of the new, you can't afford it, so you've got to just move things around, move priorities around. But that's what I was looking at, is the student-teacher ratios, and normally there's the state standards, and then oftentimes districts have their own standards, and sometimes it's somewhere in between as long as it satisfies the state.
But if we go to the BEP standards, we're gonna cut out 1/3 of our staff.
No, I wouldn't go to the BEP standards. None of the school districts in the state are fully funded with the BEP. It's only a funding model, and they may say it's 100%, but it's not for what you really need to run a school district. So that wouldn't be an option either.
Well, I think if we were to do that, we're gonna see a drastic decrease in our scores rather than an improvement.
Mr. Pennings.
Well, I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in. I'd like to add $10,000 to the budget. We have a department in our system that is not funded, hasn't been funded for all the time I've been here, hasn't been funded for all the time Tommy's been here. And I even forget what we call a department, but it's something where we can pay to have a piece put in the paper, like when, yeah. I mean, that's the department that we have, and it's a paid position, but it does not have a budget. And there's so many times when something happens that you'll see a spin in the paper that is completely wrong. And we never answer them because they want money to put stuff in the paper, and we don't have it.
Do we not budget for any PR or anything? I know we have an employee, but do we not budget anything for
So the
that?
one thing we did add in, Miss Gagliano, Miss Dodgeridge requested a stipend for school-based webmasters, but other than that, her budget is built into my budget. So she lives inside my travel line, inside my PD line. She uses my line to do what she needs to do. But she has no budget, no ma'am.
So what he's talking about, ads in the paper, rebuttal, I guess, to some degree. So that you would,
Oh, you're even talking in the magazine that the county puts out for the, Visit Murray County. In my view, they should let us put a nice ad in there for free, and I don't know if they do or not, but it's for magazines like that and putting the right spin in the paper. I mean, we sit out here and we're at the mercy of whatever the press says or whatever the news reporter that's sitting in here says happened, and a lot of times it's completely wrong.
For the magazine article that goes out, we have to have a business sponsor us because they don't do free ads.
okay.
So that's how we usually, and it's only an eighth of a size.
What I think that I would suggest that you all check your numbers, get the numbers right, bring us back the correct numbers, and then we'll meet again next week, see where we are, and let those board members here decide. But I also hope you agree with me that we need to include in those numbers the raise and the beginning okay? And as you told Mr. Hubner, you're looking at a 2% raise. Yes. So I'd rather deal with that number right now. If we have to go to a 1% at some point, maybe, but I think 2% is what the state is saying, that's what teachers hear, and I think they earned it and deserve it, so. Any other comments, please? Yes, Mr.
And I think we have to decide at the next meeting or give them some kind of direction now what we're gonna do with the stipend. Because if they figure the 2% raise on the stipend, it's gonna raise it up and,
What they're saying is, coaching supplements are based on a percentage, like band directors make 15%. If they get a raise, 2%, whatever it is, and then that's multiplied by that 15%. So it raises the stipend as well. But I do feel very strongly that all our employees is who needs to be included, because I can't think of any that aren't needed as far as teaching assistants, secretaries, whatever. And most of them, I mean, they pay out of their teeth for insurance. They don't get the benefit that teachers do. So I think that that's important, that all of our employees benefit from it. Do you need anything else from us? Oh, sorry.
Tommy was first.
Go ahead,
Go
Dick.
ahead,
We
Tom.
need much more colorful. Mr. Dudley.
Well, as far as the staffing, I'd like to see us just leave it all 2%, including the staffing.
Okay.
And then when it come to if we had to start making cuts, then we could look at putting a cap on the staffing amount, somewhere or another. I too agree that we should give all of our employees, whatever one gets, they all get. But because it's not, I like to see us give the raise to all of our employees, not just the ones funded by the BEP
And the
or
stipend as well.
or
Wanna figure that in.
or the license, but because it's certainly not someone's fault that they're not covered by the BEP. You know, they work just as hard as any of our other employees, and I've always voted to for them all to get an equal raise.
Thank you, Matt. I think here earlier mentioned about a student-teacher ratio. Can we perform that and see where we stand before we go to the,
Yes.
okay. I'd like to know that. Appreciate it.
Did we not discuss that at some work session or something, that we would look at those class sizes and all, that would be one way you could modify? I mean, maybe classes may have 10 in them, some 35, that's one way to look at, okay, if you could bring back. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, will do. I wanted to get clarity, Mr. Dudley. With you're saying 2% for everyone, correct? Yes, sir. I wanted to know, would that also include the family resource centers? I wanted to also advocate for the family resource center directors who have not, they didn't get the 3% raise that we gave last year. I'm wondering, is
Why
it?
did they not?
Well, because there's a state grant that pays their salary. And so you have 3 individuals that split.
Who pays their insurance and stuff like that?
We're paying that.
All right, so they're our employee.
Yes, I just want to know if
workers' why would they not get the 3% raise? I don't understand.
their salaries paid for, yeah, with a grant. So that's why I was wondering if we could
Yeah,
apply that to them
yes,
also. Would you
yes.
be okay with? Okay.
I mean, no, I have no
Okay.
problem with that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hey, one more comment. Ms. Ventura just reminded us that if we do include the 2%, because she's juggling staff in both general fund and in federal, and her federal budget is pretty much set, that she may have to shift a couple positions to GP to be able to fund the increase in the Fed. So We just wanted to tell you that, so if our number's a little bit different, that's why.
I'm glad you're here to point that out. That's absolutely. So y'all got a lot to bring back to us. Really accurate numbers and everything we need, and then we'll make a decision about what we can take to the commission, correct? Is there anything else?
When's your next meeting?
Okay. I think that it was scheduled for, why are we having it on Tuesday? What about Monday? I don't like.
Monday, I've got a medical procedure,
Okay.
so I can't come.
Okay. Ms. Parker said she thought one was scheduled for Tuesday the 15th. The next week you run into graduations every night. And so I don't know if you all need 2 weeks, we could wait till after school is out and schedule a budget meeting then.
Tuesday did not show up on the computer.
Well, I think it was just tentative, so I don't think it was scheduled. So you want to just wait and let Ms. Parker check with you all and see, and that gives you a little more time to check your numbers and see what you can do.
When do we have to have it to the commission?
We don't have to have it to commission until June 4th, 5th, or 6th.
Okay.
So we have, Central High School's graduation is on Tuesday, the 22nd.
I know, I'll be there.
Yeah, at 7 o'clock.
So,
No, we can't meet that week. There's a graduation every night,
Next week,
not next week.
Santa Fe, Hampshire, Spring Hill High School. And then
well, how about after that?
that's what I was looking at.
I'm
Hold on
talking
one
about the
second.
week after school's out, after Memorial Day.
So, oh, you're looking at the week of the 28th.
Yeah, because of the week of the 21st is graduations.
The week of the 21st, we've got 2 graduations left. We got Central on the 22nd, and then Mount Pleasant High School on the 24th.
Okay.
We have nothing on the 23rd. You have a board meeting on the 21st.
Could you meet before the board meeting?
In a
Or make
budget
it
meeting?
part of the meeting?
Well, no, our meeting's been going 10
Oh, that's true. That's true. I forgot.
I think we need to meet before the board meeting too. But I don't think, is a week enough for y'all to get all these things we've asked for? I don't have a calendar in front of me. Okay,
So we're gonna recalculate this.
21st.
Yeah.
We're gonna recalculate that.
We have our regular board meeting is the 24th, is the 21st, isn't there a graduation that night? Okay, just the 22nd.
Yes, ma'am, 22nd and 24th of that week. Nothing on the 23rd.
I guess we could meet on the 23rd then. Or or on the 29th, the next week.
If we meet on the 23rd and just kind of go through with what we have, and then tell us any reductions you want us to make before we send to the county commission,
That'd give us more time.
that
Yeah.
would give us 1 more week to have all of that done. And then maybe a special called meeting the week of the 29th, or the week of the 28th?
A special call meeting to approve it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, is that 23rd looks good on your calendar?
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll be here the 23rd, the 28th. You called me in South Dakota, I'll let you know.
Well, you can Skype. That worked really well at the task force. Mr. Bates called in and, you know.
So far in the Black Hills, I'm not even sure.
I bet you'll have a phone. Mr. Dudley. Mr. Dudley. I know, I'm just teasing.
And that, you said on the, what, 21st?
23rd.
23rd? Okay.
And then maybe the 29th, yeah, for a call.
But the 21st to give y'all plenty of time where you feel comfortable with the numbers, correct?
Are you saying the 21st? Didn't we say the 23rd, didn't we? Okay, we have a regular board meeting on the 21st, and then we'll have a budget meeting on the 23rd. And we'll try to let everybody know. Any other comments? Tommy? All right.